Today I'm making homemade scalloped potatoes, and the ingredients that I'll be using today are 8 small Vidalia onions, 8 large potatoes, butter, flour, milk, sea salt, ground pepper, Colby Jack shredded cheese, olive oil spray, and I've already prepared the potatoes by peeling them, and I've taken the skin off of the onions, and I've already sliced 3 of the onions, so you will see me slicing onions. And with scalloped potatoes, it is a layering process, so I've already started placing the onions in one of my bowls. So I am slicing the onions right now, and then I'm going to move the rest of the onions into the bowl, and the next step will be to slice the potatoes. And you want to make sure when you're slicing your potatoes that they are thin, because it's going to take a good hour and a half with the oven preheated at 400 to cook. Because you want your potatoes to be thoroughly cooked. You don't want them to be crunchy. And this meal is actually a meal that I learned how to cook growing up from my grandmother. And this is a recipe that I cook frequently. My children and my husband love scalloped potatoes, so this is kind of a treat for my children. Okay, so the onions are sliced, and I'm moving them over to the bowl that I have on the side of the stove. And next I'll be slicing the potatoes. And as I slice the potatoes, I'll be placing them directly into the baking dish. And I'm going to spray the baking dish with olive oil. Spray. So I don't want the potatoes to stick to the bottom of the casserole. And again, I'm using the olive oil spray. Now I am slicing the potatoes, and I'm slicing them thin, as I said before, because you want to make sure that the potatoes are sliced thin, because when you're cooking them, it's going to take a good hour and a half to even possibly 2 hours to cook the scalloped potatoes, but depending on how many layers of potatoes and onions that you actually are going to be using. And I've already started placing the potatoes in the bottom of the casserole. And again, you're just going to be layering the onions and the potatoes. And the next step is to layer a small layer of onions on top of the potatoes. And then I'm using sea salt for taste. And then ground pepper. And then I like to use Colby Jack cheese. And it's finely shredded, and I just put a thin layer of cheese on the top of the onions and the potatoes. And I just keep repeating this process until the potatoes are gone. And after you have the layering process down, the last step will be for you to make a white sauce using real butter, and I use whole milk and salt and pepper, and I'll be making that on the stove top. last so you can see how to make a white sauce. A lot of people call it a roux. So I'm continuing to layer with the potatoes. And then you want to make sure that you put your salt and pepper between the layers so that it won't have here we go. Then after I do my salt and pepper, I'll be putting the onions on top and then the cheese. So I'm putting the onions on next. And then the cheese. And next is another potato. So after I finish slicing this potato and putting the next layer of potatoes and onions, I'm going to stop the video and I'll be finishing up with the layering process, and I'm going to get the ingredients out for the white sauce so you can see how to make the white sauce, which is the last step in making scalloped potatoes. And again, this is a very simple recipe. Just takes a little bit of time to prepare the onions and the potatoes and making sure that you have all the ingredients you need to make the dish. I like to make sure that I have enough potatoes and onions between the layers. So next I'm going to put the sea salt on the potatoes. The ground pepper. And next I'm going to be putting onions on the top. There we go. And then cheese. Go. And I'm going to stop the video and get ready to make the roux sauce. The next step in making scalloped potatoes is making the white sauce. And the white sauce in which I make is what I used to watch my grandmother doing. And she would take a stick of butter and she would put it in a preheated skillet, and she would wait for the butter to melt. Then once the butter was melted, she would use flour, and she would mix the flour with the butter, and she would gradually add salt and pepper. And once that was mixed, then she would start whisking the mixture while she poured whole milk into the skillet to make a roux or a white sauce. And this is the same basis for making any sauce or gravy. You always want to make sure you're using some sort of animal fat or byproduct as your base, and you mix it with any type of flour that you wish to use, and then you add your liquid, whether it will be chicken stock, milk, or water. And in this case, I want my white sauce to be a little bit more richer in taste, so I am using butter and whole milk. And I do use a flour that is in a canister, and you can shake it out, and it mixes very well with the butter, and there's less bumps, and it's more smooth. So the butter is starting to melt. I'm just going to move it around to give it a little bit more heat distribution, and it's already melted. So now you'll see me, I've got a whisk, and I'm just going to continuously shake the flour into the butter, and I'm whisking at the same time because I want to make sure that I'm getting the flour mixed into the butter. And this takes a little bit of practice. You need to make sure that it is thick when you stop shaking the flour in, and constantly move your whisk around. And then I'm going to be adding sea salt. So you want the sauce to have a little bit of flavor. And then add your ground pepper. And it is bubbling. And then the last step is you want to continually add your milk, and you're whisking at the same time. And I've used about probably 1.5 cups of milk to start off with. And I'm going to turn the heat up to medium-high. And then once it starts thickening a little bit, I'm going to add more milk. So I am making enough white sauce in order to pour it over the top of the potatoes in the casserole. And this is what gives it a nice flavor, and it gives it also a cream sauce when it's baking. So now I've got 2 cups of milk in the mixture of flour and butter and salt and pepper. And I'm just going to continually whisk in small circles. And I'm just going to make sure that it gets nice and thick. And then the last step is pouring the white sauce over top of the casserole. Okay, so now it's nice and thick, so I'm going to move it off of the heat. And in order to be able to pour the white sauce evenly, I just need to move the remainder of my milk into another measuring cup, and then I'm going to pour the white sauce into my measuring cup so it will be easier. So the last step in making the scalloped potatoes is I'm going to pour the white sauce evenly over the top of the casserole. And it will work its way down between the layers of the potatoes and the onions and the cheese. And last, I'm going to be placing the casserole in the oven. It's preheated at 400, and I'm going to be cooking this in the oven for approximately 1 hour and 30 minutes, and then I'll check to see if the potatoes are soft, and if so, then I will be taking them out to cool, and I'll show you the final product. I hope you enjoy. I just took the scalloped potatoes out of the oven, and I'm getting ready to serve some into a bowl so you can see what it looks like out of the pan and in a bowl. Here are the scalloped potatoes in a bowl, and I hope you enjoy. Until next time.